Today I want to talk to you about three different kinds of errors that you can have in your programming. The first one is a logical error. The second one is a syntax error. And the third one is a runtime error. Now, a logical error is simply just an error in your program where the program is just not doing what you wanted it to do. And we'll do an example of that. So the program's not crashing or anything like that. It's just not doing what you wanted. So let's do a logical error first. So let's say you wanted to print out the numbers 1 to 5 in a row on the screen. So you said for I in range 1 to 5, what do we want to do? We want to print the number that we're on. So you want to print the numbers 1 to 5 in a row. So you go ahead and run your program and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, but down a column. So that's just a logical error. Remember, it doesn't print the last number that's here. So if I want to print 1 to 5, I need to make that a 6. And if I want to print them in a row, I can't just use a print statement like this. What I'd have to do is I'd have to say and equals quote quote. And now when I run it, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across. The next one is called a syntax error. And syntax errors are caught by the compiler all the time. And what I mean by that is when you press F5 and you run your program and it gives you an error before you even get to do anything, you haven't even run your program, that's being caught by a compiler, and that's called a syntax error. And a syntax error really is just you haven't used the code properly, and so Python just doesn't really know what you actually mean. And I'm sure you've gotten this lots and lots and lots. One example that I have is, let's say we're going to print those numbers 1 to 5 again in a row on the screen. So we say for I in range, and we remembered, oh, I need to put a 6 here if I want to see the 5. And then we say print I, and I need to say the end. Don't go to a new line. So this all looks good, and then I go and I try to run it. Oh, there's an error, and the compiler's caught it before we even get to run the program. Oh, that is because it's a syntax error. And you can read right over here, it says syntax error, invalid syntax. And why is it invalid syntax? Well, if you look back over here, we need that colon right there. Okay, so then when we try to run it again, you can see it's working perfectly. So syntax error is just we've actually used the code wrong in some way, and so the compiler will catch it and the program won't even run. The last example that I want to show you is called a runtime error. Now this is kind of in between the other two. So we've got a logical error where the program's just not doing what you want it to do. We've got a syntax error where the program won't even run at all because we've used the code wrong somehow, forgotten a colon or something like that. And last but not least, we've got a runtime error. Now, a runtime error will crash the program, but the program will run until it gets to that error. So let's say we're going to get a number from the user, and we're going to divide 10 by that number. So let's say number equals integer input, what is a number? And then we're going to print 10 divided by our number equals, and then the answer. Dot format. Forgot one here too. Dot format, and then what do we want to have? Well, we want to print out the number, and then the number, and then the number 10 divided by the number. So all we're really doing here is we're getting a number from the user that's an integer. We're dividing 10 by that number, and then we're printing the answer to the screen. Let's run that. It says, what's a number? If we enter the number 10, that's great. The answer is 1. Now if I run it again, what's a number? And we enter the number D, and we run it. You see, it stops right away because we have an error. You can't divide an integer by a D. So that's a runtime error where a program runs fine until all of a sudden something happens and it crashes. Now, even in cases like this, what we can do is we can try to fix it, right? We can say, well, true, try to get a number from the user that's an integer, and then if that works, then break, and then if it doesn't work, then we can say no, that's not a number, and then we can actually do it after that. So if I run it again, and what's a number, I can enter the number D, and says no, that's not a number. So we've kind of fixed this. If I enter a 5, it still works. But if I run it again, it says enter a number, what's a W? No. Enter a number, I enter 0, I still get an error. Why? Because you're never allowed to divide by 0. That's undefined. Okay, so even in this case where we're saying no, we're not going to take letters from the user, there's still a chance that we could still get a runtime error when, for example, we divide by 0. Okay, so those are the 3 different types of errors we can have. We can have logical errors where the program is just not doing what you want it to do, but it's running. We have syntax errors, which are caught by the compiler, so the program won't even run. It's just going to give you an error right away. And we have runtime errors where the program crashes under certain conditions.